Hi, everybody. We're just going to give folks 1 or 2 minutes to hop in, and then we'll get started.
I have my matzahs. And I have my grape juice. I am set.
Nice. Everybody's box got really small. There's lots of people now.
Thank you.
Welcome, everybody. We're going to give it 1 more minute for a few more folks to join. Okay, Sonia, you want to start us off?
Okay, so welcome, everyone, to Secular Seder, Passover Without God. We're going to have a great evening. We've got a great Haggadah set up. This is a collaboration between HuJews on campus and the Secular Student Alliance. Hey, Kevin. Thank you so much for partnering with us tonight. It's really wonderful to have all these people out and be working with such a wonderful organization. I'm Sonia. I'm the program coordinator for HuJews on campus, which is a new initiative of the Society for Humanistic Judaism designed to support college students that identify as both secular and Jewish. And in addition to this Seder, one of the first things that HuJews on campus will be doing is a new leadership fellowship that will give college-aged humanistic Jews or humanistic Jewish curious people an opportunity to really explore and grow as leaders. There'll be a one-on-one mentorship opportunities, great leadership opportunities. It's going to be a really cool experience for anyone who is currently enrolled in college and identifies as both secular and Jewish. So we'll share that information with all of the participants after the meeting. And, you know, if you're interested, apply, tell your friends, tell anyone you know who you think might be interested. Just try to get the word out. So on to this Seder. Just a couple kind of boring house rules before we get started. Make sure you mute yourself when you're not speaking. I don't know, I still forget that sometimes, so we don't want dogs barking in the background or, you know. soundtracks that are not provided by Rebecca, our wonderful songwriter. Also, just make sure, let's keep the energy up. Let's make it a really fun, exciting evening. So about me, I'm a writer. I come from a background of very dry poetry readings and slam poetry. And by far the more fun event is slam poetry. So those are all about like energy and showing your love and showing your enthusiasm. So one big favor I'm going to ask everyone tonight is to make sure you show your love in the chat. Like if something moves you, if you feel like you resonate with something you're reading, go ahead and show it, share it. Like you can, one thing we like to do in the slam poetry world is we'll drop 4s in the chat. We'll type a bunch of little 4s and that's like, oh yes, that was a great line. Actually, can y'all try that? Can y'all go ahead and try that for me? Put some 4s in the chat. Yes, thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Debbie. Let's get that. Oh, Shayna, Jenny, wonderful. Yes. So when you feel something in your, however you think of the soul in your human spirit in that like animating non-theistic. Yes. Make sure that you put a 4, put an emoji, put a something so that we know what you're feeling, so that we can feel connected to you. Yeah, and so with that, on that note, we're going to go ahead and get the Seder started. Randy, that's a really good question. I don't know why we picked 4. Yeah, I think it's a finger. I think you're right, James. It's the numeral that is closest to a finger. Thank you, Paul. So Paul has just put a link in the chat to our Haggadah that we'll be using tonight. All of our readings are in there in order, so you can go ahead and open it up and follow along. And the first reading we have is an excerpt from a really wonderful book from our fellow secular humanist, Sasha Sagan. Say that 4 times fast. It's an excerpt from Small Creatures Such as We. And it's her thoughts on how you can step away from traditional theistic religion and still have meaning and ritual in your life. So one thing that Sagan says is, we all deserve holidays, celebrations, traditions. We all need to mark time. We all need community. We all need to bid hello and goodbye to our loved ones. I do not believe that my lack of faith makes me immune to the desire to be part of the rhythm of life on this planet. For me, the biggest drawback of being secular is the lack of a shared culture. I can live without an afterlife. I can live without a God, but not without celebrations, not without community, not without ritual. There are no hymns about the testing of theories or mapping of genomes, no festivals to commemorate great inventions or medical breakthroughs. Since I long for ways to honor the wonder of life, I found myself making up new rituals. Sometimes I find I can repurpose the traditions of my ancestors to celebrate what I believe is sacred. Religion, at its best, facilitates empathy, gratitude, and awe. Science, at its best, reveals true grandeur beyond our wildest dreams. My hope is that I can merge these into something new, something that will serve my daughter, my family, and you, dear reader, as we navigate and celebrate the mysterious beauty and terror of being alive in our universe. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Paul for an explanation of what exactly humanistic Judaism is.
Hi, everybody. My name is Paul Golan. I'm Executive Director of the Society for Humanistic Judaism. I'm coming to you today from Brooklyn, New York, about a half a mile from where some crazy person shot up a whole bunch of our fellow citizens. So special thoughts today for folks who may be recovering. And it's a very scary world, but it's nice to all come together. I also want to just give a special shout out and thanks to Sonia for organizing tonight and just doing a tremendous amount of work. And I don't know how Myrna's screen is sharing, but no, we don't want to share that. So maybe we can unshare Myrna's screen. Thank you. Hi. But everyone can open the PDF and follow along in a separate screen on your own. So what is humanistic Judaism? Humanistic Judaism celebrates Jewish life while foregoing appeals for divine intervention, instead putting our faith in human reason and human power as the best vehicles for improving the world. Humanistic Judaism offers a connection to Jewish identity and community for people who identify as just Jewish, culturally Jewish, Jewish, Jewish and half Jewish, multicultural, not religious, secular, humanistic, atheist, and/or agnostic. It is an approach to Judaism that enables people to say what they believe and believe what they say. For more than 50 years, humanistic Judaism has provided an inclusive home for Jews and their families, including multicultural households, LGBTQ+, partial Jewish ancestry, and those who have adopted humanistic Judaism as their own. A home for all those who identify with the history, ethical values, culture, civilization, community, and fate of the Jewish people.
Wow. Thank you. So you can start to see how Sagan's approach and humanistic Judaism sort of blend together. And Sagan herself is culturally Jewish. And one question you might ask yourself as you approach this is, what does Passover look like for secular and humanistic Jews? Like, if you don't believe in God, maybe you're not a huge fan of organized religion, how can you still make something meaningful with your culture and your tradition? And so this thought actually comes from someone who's in the room tonight, Rabbi Miriam Jairus. Hi, we see you. Shout out. I'm going to read her words for some thoughts on how we can celebrate this holiday as humanistic Jews. The holiday of Passover is one of the most celebrated holidays in the Jewish calendar. Some believe that's because the holiday is primarily home-based and does not require membership or involvement in a synagogue or temple, although it can. The history of Passover, like most Jewish holidays, is multi-layered. It began with the celebration of spring, the rebirth of nature, and the birth of baby animals. The exodus from Egypt was a later layer, which became the central and compelling story of the holiday. Although the story of the liberation of the Jews from Egypt is central in religious Judaism, remnants of the older nature holidays, both pastoral and agricultural, are easy to identify, such as the shank bone and the matzah. Since the archaeological record is clear, there is no material evidence of the Exodus or corroborating documents of the story. Secular humanistic Jews are left with a disturbing question. If the story isn't true, can we and do we want to continue celebrating the holiday? The themes of this holiday are universal. It's not difficult to identify with the story of liberation. There are many other reasons why we can and do continue celebrating Passover. Celebrating the holiday connects us to the Jewish people and our traditions. The theme of liberation and freedom is universal and timeless. Telling the entire story, both the myth and the history, only enriches our celebration of the creative imagination of our people at this time of year. And then Sagan again. It wasn't like my grandfather all of a sudden wasn't Jewish because he renounced the beliefs of his ancestors. Judaism in particular has a funny way of blurring the lines between religion, culture, and ethnicity. Through my secular lens, I see a different meaning in their traditions. There is something deeply reassuring about performing the specific steps, the exact motions that your grandparents performed and that they learned from their grandparents. You say a prayer, light a candle, make a dessert just the way they did, and imagine the nameless generations stretching back into the past. There's a pleasure in this. It's a kind of time travel, providing a sense of certainty in what's tried and true. That's why new cultures are so often built upon existing cultures. Elements are borrowed, repurposed, reinterpreted, appropriated, stolen, or used to quell unwilling converts. Some new secular scientific tradition would undoubtedly borrow from theistic ones. Words like sacred, magical, and spiritual come from theism, but they describe the same feeling even when it's elicited by an understanding of scientific phenomena. These words are evolving with our understanding of our place in the splendor of our existence.
Hi everyone, I'm Joanne. I'm one of Sonia's little sisters. I'm reading the Night for Talking section. A story is related of Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Joshua, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Tafran, that they once met on the night of Passover in Bnei Brak and spoke of the departure from Egypt all that night, until their disciples came and said to them, "Rabbis, it is time for the morning prayers." When they were talking about that lasted all night, that so consumed them that they lost track of time and did not realize when morning had come, likely the Exodus story, the suffering and the response to servitude, or perhaps they were talking in code, or maybe even openly and more bravely about how to cope with Roman oppression of their own day, how to rally the people, and how to inspire hope. Passover is not just about distant memories. It is much more about recent events of our own lifetime. It is about very old legends, and it is about also very real contemporary challenges. In the traditions of the rabbis of Bnei Brak and the spirit of the ancient symposia that define this banquet, we too will talk and discuss, probably not through the night, but with perhaps the same intensity and seriousness of those earlier sages.
Thank you, Joanne. That's my sister, everyone. So given what we've been talking about, given the fact that the story we tell at Passover may not be super historical, and we identify as secular Jews, what does it mean to you to celebrate a secular version of a Jewish ritual? And you can go ahead and drop your thoughts in the chat. We can maybe have one or two people come off mute. If you would like to, you can go ahead and raise your hand. But just kind of share what makes this ritual meaningful to you, even if you don't necessarily believe in God. Community, history. Yeah, I totally agree. That sense of connection, that sense of connection to people in your present moment and people in the past. Yep, heritage and culture. Yeah. The primal urge for freedom. I like Phyllis, yes, fun rituals.
Right.
And Debbie, I agree that we've all sought freedom for something. It's a very, just like Sagan said, it's a very universal feeling, and we can use that feeling to do good in the world and help others. All right, so thank you guys so much for sharing a little bit. We can go ahead and move on into the Seder and move on into our rituals. I think Jenny's gonna pick up with the Seder plate.
I'm Jenny. I'll be reading the Seder play. First we have Zeruah, the shank bone symbolizing the temple sacrifices in ancient times. Be'etzah, which is the roasted egg, also symbolizing temple sacrifices as well as spring rebirth.
Can you yell? Because we can't hear you. Sorry.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Can you hear me now?
A little bit better. That's better.
Can we start again?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So for the traditional symbols, there's Zeruah, the shank bone, symbolizing the temple sacrifices in ancient times. Be'etzah, the roasted egg, symbolizing temple sacrifices as well as spring rebirth. Maror, bitter herbs, symbolizing the bitterness of slavery. Matzah, unleavened bread, symbolizing the ancient Israelites' haste to leave Egypt with no time for their bread to rise. Haroset, a mixture of chopped nuts, apples, wine, and spices, symbolizing the mortar used by the Israelite slaves in ancient Egypt. Karpas, a vegetable, often parsley, symbolizing both spring and also, when dipped into salt water or vinegar, bitterness of slavery. And now for contemporary additions to the Seder plate. The beet, selek. Some substitute a roasted beet for the shank bone at a vegan or vegetarian Seder. Our tradition tells us that Moses was chosen because he showed compassion to a lamb. We will show compassion by substituting the beet for the lamb. Our compassion extends to our care and devotion to all people and creatures. The orange, tapus. Susanna Heschel first pioneered the orange after encountering a Haggadah that suggested adding a crust of bread on the plate in solidarity with Jewish lesbians. For Heschel, bread was on the Seder plate meant accepting the assumption that lesbians and gay men violate Judaism. Instead, she pioneered the orange to symbolize the inclusion of gays, lesbians, and others who are marginalized within the Jewish community. Today, the orange symbolizes fruitfulness for all Jews when LGBTQ+ individuals can participate fully and authentically in Jewish life. Miriam's cup. We fill Miriam's cup with water to honor her contribution to the Jewish people. Like Miriam, Jewish women in all generations have been essential for the community of our people. Women pass down songs and stories, rituals and recipes from mother to daughter, from generation to generation. Let us fill the cup of Miriam with water from our own glasses so that our children may continue to draw from the strength and wisdom of our heritage. We place Miriam's cup on our Seder table to remind the important and often unrecognizable role of Jewish women in our tradition and history, to tell their stories that have been so sparingly told. Seed, as well as the seeds. Some substitute seeds for the egg at a vegan or vegetarian Seder. Be'etzah is the seed of life. It is the power of our evolutionary past and the gift of our human inheritance. But the seed is fragile. Growing life needs warmth and love and security. It needs guidance, hope, and vision. Birth is only the beginning. Human life needs the gentle care of others. Life needs the encouragement of family and friends and community. We commit to doing teshuvah, honest looking, and relational repair for the immense suffering and harm that happened here, and we continue to benefit from. Fair trade, chocolate or cocoa beans for labor issues, a banana for refugees, a pine cone for prison reform, and an acorn for indigenous land.
Hi everyone. My name is Ari Laser, and right now I'm at Sarah Lawrence College in Bronxville, New York, and we'll be reading the candle lighting. So, This blessing can be recited as we light the candles to begin the Passover Seder and to celebrate the arrival of spring. If this blessing is different or new to you, Judaism is a constantly evolving conversation, practice, and identity. Humanistic Judaism replaces reference of God and the supernatural with a human-centered liturgy. This text has been used for tens of thousands of Jews over the past 50 years. And then, blessed is the light in the world, blessed is the light within humanity, and blessed is the light of Passover. I don't have any.
Baruch haor ba'olam, Baruch haor ba'adam, Baruch haor ba'pesach.
Gotcha.
And now the Kiddush, the blessing over the wine. In joy and celebration, we come together at this Seder. Blessed are the earth, the sun, and the rains that bring forth the fruit of the wine.
ברוכים האדמה, השמש והגשם שברים פרי הגפן.
I'll go ahead and read that. So why 4 cups of wine? Tradition says that the 4 cups of wine are said to symbolize the freedom of the Jewish people from the 4 exiles: Egyptian, Babylonian, Greek, and the modern day exile. While the historical reality of these exiles is debatable, they nonetheless live at the core of Jewish identity and consciousness. Perhaps then there is power in examining who these stories of exile have led us as Jews to become. Therefore, instead of exile, tonight these cups will represent the values that our Jewish identities endow us with: freedom, compassion, thanksgiving, and responsibility.
Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Levin. I'm based in Los Angeles, California, and I am the Director of Strategy for Jews for a Secular Democracy. So for our first cup of wine, the cup of freedom. The wine of Passover is the wine of joy, the wine of love, the wine of celebration, the wine of freedom. Freedom from bondage and freedom from oppression. Freedom from hunger and freedom from want. Freedom from hatred and freedom from fear. Freedom to think and freedom to speak. Freedom to teach and freedom to learn. Freedom to love and freedom to share. Freedom to hope and freedom to rejoice now in our days and forever. Precious is the life within the world, precious in the life within us. Praised are those who bring forth the fruit of the vine. L'chaim. Now the erchatz. The beauty of erchatz was revealed to me during a women's seder. Each participant washed the hands of another with care and kavanah, intentionality, and without words. The sisterhood created in the sacred silence elevates communal consciousness. How will we utilize this state of purity? V'ahavta l'recha kamocha, to love the other as ourself. The first time I heard a trafficking survivor speak many years ago, she told the story of her parents trafficking her for sex from the time she was a young girl until she was an adult. I sat in horror, listening to her calm recollection of how both her mother and father trafficked her, sometimes leaving her for days at a time in a makeshift brothel when she was barely old enough to read and write. Her story was my truah, a decibel-defying call to action to open doors, pull back curtains, and shout from the rooftops the pain and suffering of trafficked individuals in our midst. The sound of the shofar in Passover reminds me not only of one woman's unspeakable journey, but of my greater responsibility to ensure my call becomes a collective call to action for all of us in the Jewish community. That's from Jody Rabban, the National Council of Jewish Women.
Hi, I'm Emily Hamer, Sonia's other little sister. I'm in El Paso, Texas, and I'm a freshman at the University of Texas at El Paso. I'm reading the Karpas. Choose from among the spring vegetables on the Seder table and dip one in salt water. The spring vegetable reminds us to pay attention to the season, the time in the Northern Hemisphere when we see flowers blooming and hear birds chirping. The salt water in which we dip the vegetable recalls the salty tears our ancestors shed when we were enslaved, as well the tears of those today who are oppressed or enslaved. The blessing we recite heightens our awareness and gratitude for this movement when we are free to celebrate together. Blessed are you, unique world of ours, for producing the fruit of this earth.
Baruch ta umanu yachid umayuchad borei priye hadama. And, I think our youngest volunteer actually couldn't make it tonight. He was scheduled to read the 4 questions. I can read them, or if anyone wants to volunteer, pop in the chat right now, and you can volunteer to read the 4 questions. All right.
I can read.
Oh, great. Perfect.
Hi, my name is Shahid, and I'm going to read the first question, right? I have to read the first question, correct? Okay. Matzah is a symbol of our affliction and our freedom. Legend has it that when Moses and his followers fled Egypt, they moved so quickly that the bread they baked did not have time to rise. However, scholars have noted that long before the Jews celebrated Passover, farmers of the Middle East celebrated Hazamatut, the festival of unleavened bread, at this time of the year. This was a festival where unleavened bread was made from the new grain harvest that took place at this time of the year. The old ferment dough was thrown out so that last year's grain would not be mixed with this year's. Therefore, the new year began with the eating of unleavened bread matzah. Later on, the Jewish people incorporated this agricultural festival into the celebration of freedom and renewed we now call Passover.
I like that idea of the question, then the answer. So I'm going to do question number 2, which is, on all other nights, we eat herbs of any kind. Why on this night do we eat only bitter herbs? And the answer is, survey says, tradition says that this root is to remind us of the time of our slavery. We force ourselves to taste pain so that we may more readily value pleasure. Scholars inform us that bitter herbs were eaten at the spring festival in ancient times. The sharpness of the taste awakened the senses and made the people feel at one with nature's revival. Thus, the horseradish is the stimulus of life, reminding us that struggle is better than the complacent acceptance of injustice. Someone want to jump on that third question and answer?
I will. This is Debbie from Washington, D.C. On all other nights, we do not dip our herbs even once. Why on this night do we dip them twice? The first time, the salty taste reminds us of the tears we cried when we were slaves. The second time, the salt water and the green help us to remember the ocean and green plants and the earth, from which we get air and water and food that enable us to live.
Awesome. Somebody want to do the 4th and final question?
Grab it. On all other nights, we eat either sitting or leaning. Why on this night do we eat while leaning? This question goes back to ancient times in Rome, when it was the custom for rich people to eat while lying on a couch, leaning on one elbow, as slaves and servants fed them. Jewish people thought of this relaxed type of eating as a sign of freedom and prosperity, so they would lean to one side eating at the Seder on Passover, the festival of freedom. Today, we who are free eat while sitting up, even at Passover, but the question remains in the service as a reminder of how it was when our people longed for freedom. And we actually have a short activity in the spirit of the night of discussion. Instead of questions about the symbols and their meaning, we have some short questions as about what is freedom to you, what makes you feel free, what questions do you have about Passover, and if you have like a freedom hero. So if you want to pick your favorite question, or you can type really fast and answer all of the questions, go ahead and drop some answers to that in the chat. I think my freedom hero, I have so many. One question I have about Passover: can we make matzah taste better? I mean, I know like I know there's the chocolate matzah, but ooh, Philip Randolph. Steve, I like that definition of freedom. Everything matzah? No, I haven't tried that. Oh, Linda, I love that true freedom comes when there's justice among humans for all life forms. And Jenny, please send me your matzah recipe. I have a very small kitchen in my apartment, but I'll do my best. These are great answers, everyone. Thank you so much for putting those out there. So now that we've had a chance to reflect on that, we can go ahead and go to Rabbi in training, Eva Cohen. I guess we can't call you Rabbi yet. Is that? But
not yet.
I'm wondering,
is it bad luck? I'm sorry if it is.
I hope not. Is someone reading about the 4 children before I go?
Oh, I don't know. I'll go ahead and read that really quick. So we've got a really fun 4 children tonight. Traditional Seders tend to include advice for addressing the 4 children or the 4 sons. Each of them have a different temperament and attitude towards tradition and knowledge. But because Paul and I are both Star Wars nerds, our 4 children tonight are represented by Star Wars characters. So the wise child is, of course, Princess Leia. Wisdom in Judaism is in part about opting into community. Princess Leia is in the end a visionary who leads from within the midst of the community, unlike her brother Luke, who is more powerful with the Force, but chooses isolation and thereby diminishes his influence. Leia's power comes from the relationships that she builds and from her respect for tradition, peace, and goodness. Then you have the wicked child, Kylo Ren. The medieval sage Maimonides teaches that to be human is to be made up of many tendencies, good and evil, generous and stingy, cruel and merciful. Kylo Ren is not wholly evil. His wickedness is the result of his feeling like an outsider and of his longing for recognition and validation. He seeks to satisfy these needs from the wrong powers, i.e. Supreme Leader Snoke and the Emperor, until ultimately he is able to turn inward, finding the wellspring of his own goodness and do the right thing. Then we have the simple child, Sweet Finn. This is the most imperfect of the 4 designations because Finn is in fact far from simple. He is brave and thoughtful character who doesn't get nearly enough attention in the movies. J.J. Abrams, are you listening? Like the simple child, though, Finn initially does not make decisions for himself. Having been kidnapped and raised to be a soldier, he knows nothing but the life of a stormtrooper. Like the simple child in the Haggadah, though, Finn's determination compels him to ask questions, and it is his questioning of himself, his role, and the First Order that allows him to grow. As Finn begins to consider his own values, he removes his helmet and ultimately joins the resistance. And then we have the child who does not know how to ask, Rey. The 4th child has not yet begun to ask questions. Like Rey throughout her childhood, the child who does not know how to ask sits silently at the Seder table, waiting to be taught. Rey wants to help. She is good at heart and has a sense of her potential to do good, but she doesn't know how to begin to get the answers. Instead, she waits on her home world for someone to show up and teach her. Once the resistance finds her, and especially once she finds a teacher in Leah. Rey's potential is unleashed, leading her to become a powerful force for righteousness in the galaxy. Here is a lesson about the power of educating and the importance of ensuring that everyone has access to learning. Hag Pesach Sameach, happy Passover, and may the force be with you.
Hag Sameach.
Hag Sameach. And hi, my name is Eva Cohen. I'm in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I'm currently a rabbinical student at the International Institute for Secular Humanistic Judaism, and I'm also the ritual leader of Or Emet, which is Minnesota's Congregation for Humanistic Judaism. The Magid. As a secular person who knows that the Bible isn't an extremely accurate history book, you may wonder if the Exodus story has any historical truth. There's no evidence from archaeology or ancient records that a giant group of Israelites escaped from slavery in Egypt to settle in Canaan. However, we do know that some Canaanite people lived as strangers in Egypt and founded the Hyksos dynasty that ruled there from about 1650 to 1550 BCE. When a native Egyptian dynasty defeated the Hyksos, many Canaanite people fled the country. Memories of the Hyksos dynasty's abrupt end may have inspired the Exodus tradition. We also know that Canaan was a colony of the Egyptian New Kingdom for about 300 years, from the 15th century to the 12th century BCE. Canaanite people, including a group called the Habiru or Hapiru, who lived on the fringes of society, suffered under Egyptian colonial rule. Egyptian rulers and their local representatives forced some Canaanites into slavery in Canaan while sending others to Egypt as slaves. There are scholars who think that the Exodus tradition grew from the memory of a small group of Canaanite slaves who escaped Egypt and returned home. Others argue that the ordinary Canaanite people's experience of oppression and economic exploitation under Egyptian rule, and their sense of miraculous liberation from this oppression when Egypt withdrew from Canaan, inspired the cultural memory of Exodus. This cultural memory, a mix of real, legendary, and invented elements, was a response to the trauma of Egyptian colonization. So thinking about what I know was kind of an intense ancient history speed through, I have a couple of questions for all of you. We'll start with the first one. Feel free to share your responses in the chat. So the question is, how does knowing the real history affect your feelings about Passover? What changes for you and what stays the same, knowing that information? And I'll give folks a moment or two to think. And I know for myself, I'm really struck by how Jewish tradition reflects a real experience with oppression and resistance to oppression from an early period. And as folks are, maybe continuing to mull over that question a little bit, I'll pose the second one. If the Exodus story is a cultural memory, what kinds of future cultural memories do you think are forming right now? How will people of the distant future remember the COVID pandemic, Zoom Seders, global warming, war, violence, and oppression happening today? What stories do you think they'll tell about 2022 in 3,000 years? And feel free to share your answers to that in the chat as well. I'm seeing some more optimistic and some more pessimistic answers, the whole range here. I think all valid in their own ways. And I'll just say, yeah, people of the past, present, and future, we're all connected through the telephone game of history. And how appropriate that I think we heard a phone ring just a moment ago.
Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children, keep the circle whole. For the children of our children, won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? 'Cause all I ever had, redemption songs, redemption songs. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Oh, some say it's just a part of it. We gotta fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? 'Cause all I ever had, redemption songs, redemption songs. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Yes, some say it's just a part of it. We gotta fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? 'Cause all I ever had, redemption songs, redemption songs, redemption songs.
Thank you. That was absolutely beautiful. My name is Lincoln Dow. I will be reading the 10 plagues followed by the 10 modern plagues. I am a student at New York University and I am here in New York, New York. We will begin with the traditional 10 plagues. It saddens us that any struggle for freedom involves suffering. Generally, we drink wine to rejoice. Therefore, for each plague, we will take out a drop of wine from our cup. This way, we do not rejoice over the suffering of others. The plagues that we are told afflicted the Egyptians were blood, frogs, vermin, beasts, boils, cattle disease, locusts, hail, darkness, and the slaying of the firstborn. We will continue now to 10 Modern Plagues from Jews for a Secular Democracy, which is the pluralistic initiative of the Society for Humanistic Judaism, working to counter the influence of religion on government policy by galvanizing the Jewish community to defend the separation of church and state. So here are 10 modern plagues that threaten America's separation of religion and government. The first is favoritism. Despite the constitutional prohibition against a national religion, court rulings and policies have continued to favor one religion over others or over no religion, for example, by allowing federally funded adoption agencies to discriminate against non-Protestants. The second is exclusion. By claiming crosses and other Christian iconography are secular, courts have erased Americans of other or no religions, as with the taxpayer-maintained Bladensburg Cross, which supposedly represents all local World War II dead and yet excluded the names of Jewish soldiers. Third, discrimination. By twisting the notion of religious freedom, governments have supported discrimination against lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer people in the commercial, public, and military sectors. Fourth, enforced ignorance. Laws requiring school standards for secular subjects like science and English are not being enforced as they should, allowing fundamentalist Christian schools to teach that man coexisted with dinosaurs, and allowing fundamentalist Jewish schools to barely provide secular education at all. Fifth is diversion. Although religious organizations receive tax-exempt status in lieu of government funding to maintain the separation of church and state, the government still seeks to divert funding to churches anyway through grants for repairs and school voucher programs in many states. Sixth, obfuscation. Christian fundamentalists disguise their religious agenda as education, influencing local governments and especially school boards to teach intelligent design as science and to mandate Bible courses in public schools. 7, meddling. State and federal government policies towards women's reproductive rights and healthcare are increasingly influenced by a fundamentalist Christian religious approach, resulting in a sustained assault on Roe v. Wade. 8th is denial. The urgency of addressing climate change is downplayed by government officials beholden to polluting industries who too often hide behind religious claims that we can leave it in the hands of a higher authority to solve these problems. 9 is subversion. Through a well-documented plan by Christian supremacists known as Project Blitz, a coordinated effort to overwhelm state and federal legislatures with bills promoting a religious agenda has taken place, such as anti-LGBTQ laws and requiring "In God We Trust" signs in all public schools. And 10th is privilege. In order to consolidate their already strong sway over government, Christian fundamentalists have sought to repeal the Johnson Amendment that prevents nonprofits, including churches, from endorsing political candidates. And without it, unlimited dark money would pour into campaigns through churches and turn houses of worship into overt political tools.
Hi, everyone. My name's Rebecca. I feel like we already know each other, but I'll introduce myself briefly before I read for the second cup of wine. So I am the song leader for Shabbat programs and Bar Mitzvah programs at the City Congregation for Humanistic Judaism here in New York City. And during the week, I teach music at a public elementary school in Queens. So the second cup of wine, the cup of compassion. No one of us can survive alone. We must all learn to live together. Humanity is born of shared need and shared danger. Passover celebrates freedom, the will to live, and the solidarity and strength of community.
Baruchim ha'chaim ba'olam, baruchim ha'chaim ba'adam, baruchim ha'yotzrim pri ha'gafen l'chaim.
Precious is the life within the world. Precious is the life within us. Praised are those who bring forth the fruit of the vine. L'chaim. Shall I read the introduction before Dayenu?
That would be wonderful.
I wasn't sure if someone else, I didn't want to interrupt anyone. So before we sing Dayenu, Dayenu means it would have been enough. The idea is to be grateful for what one has, to count our blessings. Think of Dainu as a template for gratitude.
Im yesh lanu heirutenu, im yesh lanu heirutenu, im yesh lanu heirutenu, dainu, 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 dainu,
That's awesome. This is from Rabbi Denise Handlarski. But think too about how actually it is to enough be satisfied when there is still suffering and oppression. Some say lo dayenu, meaning it is not enough. When we are free and others are not, lo dayenu. We work to find the balance between being grateful for what is right with our lives and with the world, and also striving for more that fulfills us and more that increases justice in the world. Now, grab your matzah. I'm about to butcher some Hebrew. Notzi matzah lechem min haaretz kedei shi nitzpaket v'nit kalkel kula nu. Let us bring forth matzah, food from the land, so we all may be satisfied and sustained.
And then maror, tradition says that this bitter herb to remind us of the time of our slavery. We force ourselves to taste pain so that we may more readily value pleasure. Scholars inform us that the bitter herbs were eaten at spring festivals in ancient times. The sharpness of the taste awakened the senses and made the people feel at one with nature's revival. Thus, maror is the stimulus of life, reminding us that struggle is better than the complacent acceptance of injustice. Where people are less than human, strive to be fully human.
במקום שאין אנשים השתדלו להיות איש.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel. I'm in Ferndale, Michigan, and I currently work in human resources at Wireless Vision, a T-Mobile retailer that owns stores all across the country. And I will be reading the Hillel sandwich section. The great sage Hillel provided us with the tradition of constructing the Hillel sandwich, combining the bitterness of the maror with the sweetness of the haroset between the fortitude of the two pieces of matzah, the symbol for freedom. Through this ritual, we think about mortar and brick. We think of the Israelites traveling through the desert with no homes, no place to land and build up their strong communities, and only the matzah as a reminder of their freedom. It is not until they came to the biblical promised land that they experienced the sweetness of their redemption. We sit tonight in a place of both freedom and comfort while we remember the bitterness of the hardships of our ancestors. But what about those who cannot foresee their own redemption from the impending impacts of climate change? Those who literally do not have the infrastructure that the mortar and brick of redemption affords. There are people all over the world on the edges of shorelines which are slowly slipping away, whose homes cannot withstand the rising water and violent winds of extreme weather caused by climate change. Already, over 22 million people a year are being displaced from their homes due to natural disasters. Tonight, as we eat this sandwich, let us remember the privilege of our infrastructure and the freedom and comfort that our homes provide us. The bitterness of the salty ocean waters continues to destroy many people's homes, for many a symbol of sweetness and freedom. Without proper adaptation and mitigation, people will continue to lose their homes. They will continue to be wandering without a strong community or place they can call home.
Hello, my name is James. I'm in the greater Tallahassee, Florida area, and I'm currently a student at Florida State University. Traditionally, the leader of the Seder breaks a piece of matzah called the afikomen, that which comes after, or dessert, in half at the beginning of the night. They then hide one half of the afikomen. After the meal, the children at the Seder make a game of searching for the afikomen. Tonight, however, we're going to do something a little different and play a game that all of us can participate in, because if I just stuck some matzah in my house, it would be very boring for all of you. So instead, we've got imaginary matzah, and it is hidden at some place somewhere in the world, and we're going to play a game of 20 questions, although we're not actually going to limit to 20 questions, to find it. And you guys are going to ask the questions in the chat, and Sonia and I are going to be answering your yes or no questions until one of you finally figured out where I stashed the imaginary matzah. So here we go. We've got our first question. Thank you, Sonia. Awesome. We've already narrowed it down from the world to one specific continent. So we're doing well so far. And I'm going to keep this, is it in Canada? No. I figure this works well. That way I don't have to type quickly. Is it in New York? No. Mexico? No. California? No. Is it in the US? Yes. We've got another yes here. It is not in beautiful Rhode Island. It is not in central US, Michigan, or Florida. It is on the East Coast, not in Kansas. Yes, Eastern time zone, not on the West Coast, not west of the Mississippi. Is it near a famous landmark? Yes, I would say that. Is it in a specific building? Yes, I would say that. Is it in Virginia? No. It is in North Carolina? No. Washington, D.C.? No. Boston? No. Delaware? No. South of the Mason-Dixon? No. Man-made? Yes. No, it is not in your apartment. New York? No. Jewish-related building? Kind of. Pennsylvania? No. D.C.? No. New Jersey? Yes. No, not in Bruce Springsteen's house. Not in Asbury Park, not in Hoboken. Not in Ellis Island, not in a delicatessen. Not in Brandeis. Don't think the dueling grounds are anywhere near it. Statue of Liberty, yes, but where? Okay, we've got it. And I'm going to share screen to, okay, well, this is more complicated than, okay, well, I'm not going to share the screen because apparently there's like computer permissions that have to be done. Well, let me.
Can we make James a co-host?
It's not Zoom, it's my computer. My computer apparently says, hey, you did not tell me that we were going to let Zoom share the screen.
I don't want to share my email, but it is in my email.
I can, however, actually just show you on my phone.
This was premeditated.
Yes, I did not realize that my computer would be quite so privacy minded as to
Randy,
I'm sorry.
I honestly thought that too. This whole time I've been like, oh, it's not New York, okay. But I'm also from Houston, so.
Okay, well, it's not actually doing all the graphics, but you're gonna get the gist of it. Close enough. The wonders of Zoom, people.
Oops. Oh, there are 3 Houstonians here. Huh?
That was more fun than regular Afikomen. Thank you.
That was awesome. So the third cup of wine, the cup of Thanksgiving, we have feasted in freedom and joy. As we conclude our feast, let us remember that we cannot live by bread alone. We survive because we choose to survive. We survive because others choose to help us live. May we protect the bountiful earth that it may continue to sustain us. And may we share of its richness with all who are in need of sustenance in the world.
Barachim ha'chaim ba'olam, barachim ha'chaim ba'adam, barachim ha'yotzrim pri ha'gafen l'chaim.
Precious is the life within the world. Precious is the life within us. Praised are those who bring forth the fruit of the vine. L'chaim.
The fourth cup of wine, the cup of responsibility. Tonight we are free while so many remain enslaved. Let us not stand idly by. Let us work to bring them freedom too. Tonight we are free while so many remain embittered. Let us not stand idly by. Let us work to bring them gladness too. For freedom does not come by chance. It is born of earnest struggle. It is the gift of life, which we must now bring to others. Precious is the life within the world. Precious in the life within us. Praised are those who bring forth the fruit of the vine. L'chaim.
Traditionally, many end their Seder with the phrase, next year in Jerusalem. However, we choose to end our own Seder with a wish for justice and peace. Let us continue our Seder by eating one last piece of matzah. You don't have to leave us with the taste of freedom's struggles. We've recounted struggles against injustice. We have sung of freedom and peace. We revisited times of persecution and times of fulfillment. Less than a century ago, the Nazis committed the crimes of the Holocaust. But today, as Jews in the United States, we are more free than at any other time in our history. We end our Seder tonight with gratitude for that freedom, and with a recognition that we have a duty to work until the same freedom extends to all. We close with a call for peace and for for persecuted peoples, including the Rohingya, Palestinians, and Uyghurs. We commit to doing the internal work necessary to confront the history of injustice and genocide in our own country. Humanity is miraculous. Let us refuse to rest until that power and potential is recognized equally for all.
Declaration of Revolutionary Love, which just closed on my screen. We pledge to rise up in revolutionary love. We declare our love for all who are in harm's way, including refugees, immigrants, Muslims, Sikhs, Jews, LGBTQIA+ people, Black people, Latinx, the indigenous, the disabled, and the poor. We stand with millions of people around the globe rising up to end violence against women, girls, cis, transgender, and gender nonconforming, who are often the most vulnerable within marginalized communities. We vow to see one another as brothers and sisters, and we fight for a world where every person can flourish. We declare love for ourselves. We will practice the dignity and care in our homes that we want for us all. We will protect our capacity for joy. We will nurture our bodies and spirits. We will rise and dance. We will honor our mothers and ancestors whose bodies breathe and blood call us to a life of courage. In their name, we choose to see this darkness not as darkness of the tomb, but of the womb. We will breathe and push through the pain of this era to birth a new future.
Conclusion. Excerpt from Good Without God by Rabbi Greg Epstein. We must act together for our own good and for the greater good. We are so fortunate to have evolved and been nurtured to possess reason, compassion, and creativity. It is what we do with these qualities that will determine everything. The fact that we live without God is, in a sense, not up to us. It's not really a choice. We see the world around us. We use our amazing human ability to think and believe with all our integrity that there is only this one natural world. But goodness is a choice. It is the most important choice we can ever make. And we have to make it again and again throughout our lives and in every aspect of our lives. We have to be good for all the people around us, be they friend or foe. We are forced to be good without God. If we can accept that reality and act with courage, we can be very good indeed.
ילדים בחוץ
Thank you so much, Rebecca. So that's all we have for tonight. But thank you so much for everyone who attended. Thank you to all of our readers who did a wonderful job. Thank you, Eva, and thank you again, Rebecca. Sorry, I can't get over how beautiful that singing was. And thank you, Paul. Could not have managed this without Paul.
Hi, everybody. Sure. And we can schmooze. I mean, it's not a Jewish event if there's no schmoozing after. So if folks want to stay, you're welcome to, and you can unmute yourself. But otherwise, if you want to go, we tried to keep it under an hour. We got to an hour, 10 minutes, not so bad for a Jewish event. And we hope you enjoyed it. And this was our first. This was our beta test. So thank you so much for being a part of this.
Yeah. I was really mystified by the Statue of Liberty too. I was like, where is
By the
it if
what?
it's not in New York? By the Statue of Liberty. Like,
Oh yeah, that was a trick. That was a trick question. There's a debate about which state it's in. But
I mean, it's clearly over the New Jersey border. I was not aware that there was a special legal status. I apologize.
had a big argument about this with someone in college because the island is closer to New Jersey, but that's not how ownership works. You know, there's lots of pieces of land that are closer to one place than another that is not owned by them.
it's true. Yeah, El Paso is closer to California than it is to Austin.
It does depend upon established things, like all of the Potomac is in Maryland or DC. It's not split down the middle, but I don't think there's any question the island is in Jersey, and that's how I got to make the jump. But I'm remembering a debate from law school many years ago. I think it was between Irish soda bread and the Humanistic. So I think somehow there should be an ongoing great debate about this question, whether Passover next year or was libations and Purim or something. But I see a good humanist tradition ongoing debate of this needle on a pin.
I think it's a Laka Human. I think it's Laka Humantashen debate, and it's like
this was in law school. We had the dean was Irish, and there was some sort of I think there was some, so there was.
Well, I have had Irish soda bread. There's no doubt that Hamantashen are superior to Irish soda bread.
Yeah.
Unless they're like really bad Hamantashen, I guess.
Well, we'll have to do a HuJews on campus Purim. That certainly is, a great opportunity.
Staring.
To do an interesting program. Hi, Myra.
Thank you all for
Myra,
doing this.
Where are you calling from?
Near Seattle.
Okay.
I got an invitation and it was just wonderful. I decided, hey, I'm dropping everything, 4 o'clock.
That's great. Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for doing this. This was wonderful. It just got me in the mood, really got me in the mood. Thank you.
Sure.
Beautiful music. Beautiful music.
Thank you, Rebecca. It was really awesome.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
I think redemption songs should just become Jewish liturgy, period. But you didn't see the behind the scenes. The behind the scenes was that the first stanza references the supernatural. So we skipped it, but I thought I came up with a clever edit, and I want to use that at some point. I don't have the exact wording, but it fit. I sang it multiple times in my head, and it totally would have fit. But we'll do that next time. And it's so interesting. So much of reggae music references Zion and the Old Testament, and there's like a lot. I watched this documentary once of someone Jewish going down to Jamaica to talk to them about all of the Hebrew and biblical references, and like the Jewish star, the Lion of Judah. It's really deep in Rastafarianism, and the folks there had no idea that there were people in the outside world called Jews who were also using those symbols for thousands of years. And it was a really interesting documentary of like trying to sensitively explain that these are symbols that have been around for a really long time. I have to find the name of that, but it was really interesting.
Oh, could you do me a favor? Could you tell me what were the symbols? What were each one symbolic? I know you got different ones on there.
Were you able to download the PDF? I'll put it in the chat one more time.
So part of it.
Because you have the PDF that with the Haggadah? Because it's all in there.
Okay, I'll check it. Great.
I have to say, I do love your little paper flames on the candles. They are adorable.
You know what? I thought about it and I'm like, do I really want to set off the fire alarm and sprinklers in this workspace? You know, do I want to risk it? So I decided not to risk it.
It's cute. Very creative.
Well, and also I can use the candles again. So it works out.
There you go. There you go. It's great.
What is
Hi, Frank. How are you? Glad to see you.
Good. Yeah, I really appreciate it. This was beautiful.
Great.
I had done one of the orange things at one of our Seders, and we came up with another kind of interesting interpretation of it. And the orange is round, and it's made up of different sections, and each section is people, you know, gay people, you know, women, black, whatever. And if you took any one of those sections out, you wouldn't have a round world anymore. It wouldn't be a complete world.
Great.
Someone came up with that, and I thought that was really a nice interpretation of the orange as well.
That is nice.
Neat. Like that.
And healthy. It's healthy. And you're doing a Seder in Westchester. Are you guys doing it in person, or are you going to be all on Zoom still?
No, we usually have a model Seder before, you know, Passover, but we're having a Zoom. So I said, well, let's have it after Passover, after the first night, and then it'll be a real Seder. So we're having it on the Wednesday between after the first Seder.
Oh, great.
That's great.
You know, there's an interesting story about the fifth night Seder. There's in Italy, one of my colleagues there is a rabbi, and she's a rabbi in Italy. And among the Anusim, they would have their Seder on the fifth night, you know, the forced converted Jews. And the reason for that is they would have it usually in the basement of a Christian home, and so that no one would suspect them of being Jews, because it was after. So there's that tradition too. So it kind of some of my congregants said, well, is it, you know, it should be before, you know, first night or second night of Passover. So, well, you know, there's a lot of different ways that we can deal with this, you know.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
I saw an estimate that as much as perhaps 10% of all people in South America are of Jewish descent. And there's a lot of exploration among people who are, you know, forced converts. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Rebecca, you have a question in the chat. Have you recorded any of these songs?
So I guess the short answer is no. A lot of them I use frequently in the Shabbat programs for City Congregation for Humanistic Judaism here in in New York City. So there might be like some recordings floating around from those programs, but a lot of the music comes from within the within SHJ, and there are some really fabulous albums that are available for purchase, like on Amazon. You can find them. I can drop some links in the chat if you're interested to take a look.
I think you could also find some on YouTube if you search humanistic Jewish music. I think a bunch of them are on there as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. They definitely are. Let me grab some. Gotta get my keyboard from over there. Hold on.
But I think the subtext of that question was you should make an album.
Or at least a SoundCloud.
Right.
That'll be my next project when I retire from teaching.
Well, I want to be mindful of our staff time as well.
Sorry.
I see some names that I'd love to say hi to, but you're not showing your video, so I won't call you out, but I just want to say thank you so much for being here. And we'll do this again. You know, this was the very first project of the HuJews on Campus initiative that Sonia is spearheading. And hopefully you will hear a lot more from us coming up real soon. Until then, have a great actual Passover this coming weekend. And it was great to be with you all. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sonia.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, thanks so much, both of you.
Thank you all.
And Rebecca.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night.
Good night. And thank you, Kevin. If you're still here, you can end us. Thank you. Good seeing you. Have a great weekend at the conference.
Yes. Have a good one,
Good
y'all.
night, everyone.
Send my regards to everybody. Take care.
Will do.